All right. Thanks, guys, ladies and gentlemen, for coming out and spending a little time with us this evening. I appreciate those of you that are coming out for a second or third community forum, and I apologize for the redundant presentation if that's the case, because the facts have started to change a little less. When we first started down the road of discovery and conversations and fact-finding, it seemed like every week as we were sharing what we knew, it would change almost as quickly as we knew it. So it's starting to kind of land somewhere. And so that said, we're going to get started tonight. I'm Caleb Petet. I don't think I see any strangers in the room entirely, but Superintendent Aaron Hart with Insight Designs with us tonight. Mr. Reinke, Assistant Superintendent, who will give the third and last report. And our Board of Education members, I thank them that are with us here this evening. There's a couple more joining us here, and they're going to hold a forum. So our plan of attack is to present you with some information, but I want to not omit saying that at the end of the evening, there will be an opportunity for you to give us feedback, and we very, very much want and need that feedback. It's really part of our planned attack, is to not just assume to know what we need to do, but to inform you and ask your opinion. And then when we have our regular board meeting, Mr. Hart from Insight Design Studios is going to present his findings from the public, and we think it's really important the public knows what the public has told us. We want that buy-in. So that said, I want to tell you tonight just some quick bullet points that I should have shared probably the first two times I presented this. But the first thing is that I want you to understand what we're here to do tonight, and its purpose is to talk about some of the financial status of the school district and why it's that way. We're going to talk about the concerns that we have and why those concerns have led us to look for cost savings. And though there is irony in this, without question, we are here at Great Circle tonight because we believe the consideration of acquiring this building will save the district money. In fact, we think it'll save almost $1 million a year in operating costs, and we think it can be purchased without financing and paid for upfront in full. So I want to tell you all the details of how we've arrived at that. We want the community, like I said already, to give us input on our proposed solutions. We really want to know what you think. We have two proposals we're going to talk about tonight, and Mr. Reinke really does a nice job as he presents getting into the details of its impact on students and staff. I'm looking more at the factors that have caused this discussion. So two-pronged proposal, both short and long-term cost savings are what they're about. The first thing we're going to be talking about tonight is closing aging facilities in the district. We have four nearly 100-year-old buildings. Actually, three of them are 100 years old and one that's almost 100 years old. You know, a building of that age wasn't built to be air conditioned, so in terms of efficiency, it costs a lot to try and air condition a building that was never designed to be air conditioned. It was designed to be drafty and have airflow. The second thing is, again, to talk about this purchase of this newer building that we're in tonight with existing funds for 1/16 of the cost of a new building. And I'll say this again later. This building is 46,500 square feet. Nothing's been agreed upon yet by any means, but the number that's being tossed around right now and discussed is $1 million, which is how much ESSER money the district has left from COVID-19, which is outside of its normal budget. If you were to build that square footage at today's rate, $350 a square foot, it would cost $16.2 million to build this building in today's money. But this thing is young compared to other buildings. It's 50 years newer than the buildings we're closing. It has safety and security features. We're going to talk about that tonight and how valuable that is. The other reasons we're meeting tonight is, or what we're not doing, I should say, is we're not pushing tonight or talking about specifically tonight a bond or a levy. Certainly that's going to be something the Board of Education does discuss in the future, but that really is a decision that requires a vote of the board, a vote of the people. We're talking tonight about that cost-saving prospect, and that's going to be our goal tonight. Last thing, the meeting tonight will begin with the details about these two issues, and it's going to end, again, I want to say this, and make sure you've heard me, we really, really, really want to get your feedback at the end of the community forum tonight. And so when Mr. Reinke's finished with his presentation, which will be last, he's going to share with you how and where we want to get your feedback. All right? Any questions before I start? Then here we go.
On behalf of the board, I'd like to welcome everyone here tonight. The other official thing we need to do is we need to open the meeting. We have 4 board members here. I was corralling people back down this way, and Mr. Petet wanted to make sure we started on time, and I appreciate that. So we're here for your feedback, as he's been telling you. We want to hear that. Aaron wants to hear your feedback for sure tonight. He's going to get all that together and give it to us in one big clear package. So please give your honest and open opinions to us as we're going through this process tonight and talking about these things. We'll also be around to ask questions later, answer questions later, because we have questions too. So feel free. Mr. Petet, back to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jakes. That's why you're the president. In case I would have just kept going if you hadn't stopped me. So thanks. So as I said, we sunset our levy in 2025. What that means is the state minimum levy is $2.75. In 2025, Marshall Public Schools will roll back to that minimum levy. There's around pretty close to 520 school districts in the state of Missouri, public school districts. Very few of them operate at the minimum levy. In fact, I haven't found one anywhere near the size of Marshall Public Schools that does. I'm sure there might be. I just haven't come across them yet. So in 3 years, what that means in oversimplified terms, because there's a lot of reasons for it, but we will have an annual $3 million deficit in how we operate the district. And that has a lot of implications for why we need to save some operating costs. And I'll be honest too, there's nothing wrong with sometimes looking at how you can become a little leaner, a little more responsible with taxpayer dollars, I don't think. First reason we've lost that money, our enrollment has declined at Marshall Public Schools. On average by about 90 students we're seeing this year, with some projections of increased declines in the years ahead. And when you're not a business, which public education most certainly is not, you're not producing a product like cars, some tangible thing, you're educating children. You get your revenue, your income, based on the number of students you have in the seats and the tax rates that are set to finance you to do it. When you lose students, you lose income. We can't do anything to become more profitable besides have those students back in the seats. So we have to talk about 2 things, and as I said, we really have one primary purpose tonight, but certainly you got to talk about how to cut costs and how to recover lost revenue. 83% of Marshall Public School District's budget annually, according to last year, is spent on salaries. That is very common the case that around 80% of a school district's budget is spent on salaries, as it should be. You pay well, you employ good people, you do good things for kids. That becomes a natural place that one would look at the biggest piece of the pie to cut costs is teachers. But again, what we do is kiddos, and what's best for kiddos is not to reduce teachers. So the plan we're going to lay out for you tonight would not look to lose any of our staff, we hope, but just to cut costs and start setting things up like attrition, which I'll talk about tonight, to save money. If we start working to get a bond and a levy while also cutting costs at the same time, we really think it's possible to avoid doing anything detrimental. What we don't want to do is put all of our eggs in one basket, as my grandma and my mom used to say. We don't want to count on one thing because we know that what we do is kids and teachers, and we want to protect them both and do what's best for them. I want to talk to you about safety and security, along with talking to you about the concerns that we have with our budget, because we also have concerns about our safety and security. And part of this, I have to talk to you as a parent as much as I do an administrator. When you have 4 100-year-old buildings, and they happen to be in Marshall for certain, the second largest budgetary impact we have each year, that starts getting really hard to budget for, really expensive to fix. 15% of our total budget last school year was spent on repairs of those buildings, the maintenance. $1.5 million on heating and cooling repairs alone in the last 3 years at Marshall Public Schools. And a lot of that $1.5 million wasn't budgeted for because we didn't know it was going to break. That increasingly is a problem for us. Big cost concerns that we have related to safety and security, especially, are secure vestibules. Entrances where you come through a secure access. Most of the doors in this building have good examples of that, and I've got a picture I'll show you on the next slide. We also have key cards where you have the ability to slide a key card to make a door open or close, to electronically shut off key cards that get lost so that somebody doesn't gain access with a found card that they weren't supposed to have. This building has those things too. secure playgrounds with fences around them or on the interior parts of the building. An example would be, it was too dark to see, but there's an interior courtyard over here. That would be a secure playground. Cameras, working or existing firing alarms, cutting-edge emergency plans. These are all things that I have concerns about for Marshall Public Schools. And you probably know this, but Mr. Reinke and I have been here about 6 months now, so these are things we've been discovering and looking at as we wanted to present to the Board of Education, you know, where we thought the state of things were. We found those things. We are understaffed on security detail, and we don't have currently a safety coordinator for the district. And in the world we live in today, that has a lot of implications that concern me when I talk to parents. And I do have phone calls, and have here in Marshall since I've been here, to say, concerned about that playground, I'm concerned about that entrance, concerned about those glass doors, what are you doing about it? It concerns me too when I have to tell them that I think that we're lacking, and we are. If I were going to give it a grade card, as a parent, I would give it an F. And as an administrator, knowing what buildings should be in the world we live in today, where someone goes into a school or government office and does something bad, it seems, on a weekly basis anymore. The only visual I have tonight, but I think it still gives me goosebumps, and I've had this presentation now about 4 times. On the right is a picture of one of our many classroom doors that are beautiful in our 100-year-old buildings. They're real wood, real pane glass windows in those doors. I was thinking about that door when I was at a conference recently in Kansas City, a safety summit that I went to with several of our Board of Education members. And we talked to a parent of a Sandy Hook victim, a Sandy Hook shooting where 26 first graders and their teachers were killed in about 4 minutes. And they talked about at Sandy Hook that the teachers had to come out in the hallway to lock their doors and secure their students. And they didn't do it because there was an active shooter out there. Those doors lock on the outside of those doors. And if you shut that door with that glass, it doesn't keep people out very well. In fact, we've had students, since I've been here and before I came in recent years, that have accidentally put their hand or foot through those windows, which leads to cuts, scars, stitches too. Several reasons to have concerns about that. The image on the left is of Sandy Hook Elementary. I also got to hear from the principal of Columbine High School, and when you actually sit in the room with those people, it really makes it feel personal. And as I heard them talk about their accounts of what happened on those bad days we hope never happens, I just thought about that classroom where my 2nd grade daughter goes to school every day at Marshall Public Schools, and how it just wasn't good enough. And you're going to hear me say that a lot tonight because I believe it with all my heart. Sandy Hook Elementary had secure vestibules. It had a secure set of doors on the exterior met by another set on the interior. They just didn't have shatterproof or bulletproof glass, which, by the way, this building has the shatterproof glass features. So what the shooter did was come through right there and in 4 minutes changed everybody's life. I just don't like thinking about that for where we are at Marshall Public Schools. And when Aaron presents tonight and talks about the cost of maintaining our buildings and making long-range facility plans, he's going to talk about improvements to our buildings and costs of doing it. It doesn't take into account all those modern safety features that I think any parent or grandparent would like to think we would provide for our kids. So what do other districts have for operating levies? If you look at Marshall currently at 283, soon to be 275, and compare it to our other districts in our area or sports conference similar to our size and student population, I'm not going to read them, I just want you to look at that for a quick minute. I think it's a logical question for the community to say and ask Marshall Public Schools, have you done everything you can to maintain the buildings that you have? I think the answer to that question isn't whether or not we've done everything we can, it's whether we were equipped to be able to compete with other people serving the same number of students as us. And the answer is no. If we want to have a great maintenance and facility plan, beautiful buildings that attract teachers to want to work here, families to want to live here, we need to be able to compete with other people on the same playing field, and we are not. We also have too many buildings and too many roofs at that price. So facility plans and maintenance. We have no long-range facility plan yet. We're really glad for Aaron and Insight Design being here and helping us to get that going. That's a big part of tonight, is getting input for what we need, what our kids deserve, what our community needs. And when it's complete, I don't have a crystal ball, but I'm going to just assume that we're going to find out we need capital in order to address termite issues that we have at Southeast, And I don't mean killing the termites, I mean fixing everything they ate. Leaks and water damage, poor air quality, mold eradication, all the windows in those 100-year-old buildings, are they leaking? Do they allow for an egress, or are the kids trapped in there with no way out but one door? Roof replacements, trailers that really have not got great ratings from our public and our climate and culture surveys. There's a lot of issues with the trailer in the long term. And we have ADA compliance issues. If you have a cafeteria in the basement, you need a way to get a student there that doesn't have the physical capacity to get there on their own. And we have buildings that lack that. We need a lot of that stuff at a lot of different buildings. So I believe we're at a crossroads where we cannot afford to properly maintain all these old buildings, and we can't afford to address all the safety and security issues in these buildings, and both are equally important. So we are making quick action, I guess, to say to you all as the public and parents and community, we need to do something. And while we're going to get a long-range facility plan, we realize that we can be more effective if we're making these changes at less locations. It would be cheaper now in the year-to-year operation costs to build new and consolidate buildings. And we're going to have engineer and architects that give you some facts about that are not my forte, but they are facts. You think about what extra buildings have. They all have kitchen staffs, they all have heating and cooling systems, they all have roofs, they all have gyms, and they all need work, and they all break. The less you have, the more you concentrate your dollars, and the better you can maintain your facilities in the long run. So we've got to consider how we can close some of those buildings, and I want to be really, really clear. If the board does talk about a bond or a levy in the future, and if the community and the Board of Education do pursue it, that has nothing to do with saving all those old buildings. I believe and I propose, based on the data that I'm showing you tonight, it is in the best interest that we close those buildings, regardless of a bond or a levy. We can be more efficient if we do. So first, yes, it would be good to talk about revenue, and in other meetings and months ahead, that will be a discussion. We need to take action immediately, however, to reduce our overhead by closing the worst and the smallest buildings. If we consolidate staff to fill open positions in the district, we're going to be doing something called attrition. And attrition only works by starting it as soon as possible. It means that if you close a building, move the students and staff to another building, suddenly you have an extra counselor, an extra nurse, an extra principal, extra kitchen staff. And none of them do we want to lose their job, and we don't intend to let that happen. We will fill open positions with the staff that we have. That is what attrition is. But you've got to start consolidating to let attrition work. It doesn't just get flipped like a switch, but we think it's the right thing to do for people we care about. And we care about them because they care about our kids. Another cost benefit is this building we're in tonight, which is why we thank you so much for coming out this evening on a cold night when it would have been easier to stay at home in the recliner. To look at this and see what you think and give us your feedback. Preliminary estimations, and we've estimated conservatively in hopes that if we're wrong in a good way, not in a bad way. Our preliminary estimations are that we could save annually of upwards of $1 million. That's in conjunction with, how do we do it? Closing some of our most concerning schools and through attrition, which takes a little time. So again, we don't think we close those buildings today, that we start saving all of that tomorrow, but it starts happening slowly through attrition. 2 years to realize the savings in full at best, and guess what? We have 2 years before that shortfall begins, so that would be good to start earlier than later. It would get, if we could get this all to work out, get the support to do it, it would get our 5th grade students out of trailers by next school year. It would also give us space to address the growing needs of our infants through preschool, and doing all that will shore up $1 million a year in savings. As I said already, we believe we can buy it through the ESSER money that's left over. It won't impact our regular budget dollars, and we think the savings will come in operation. And we have over 100 students right now that need parents as teacher services, but we don't have room to expand the program where they currently are. We have about 46 students in the district that are not fully potty trained. A lot of that's the aftermath of COVID-19, and it's hard to learn about reading and writing and math when you still haven't learned some of those fundamental skills. We need to provide services to our youngest students because we don't change our academic outcomes for our district with 12th graders, we change them with 4-year-olds. So this is a way to, I think, double down on the future for our school. So what buildings do we close and when? By next fall, I propose we close Southeast Elementary above all else. It is the smallest, and it is arguably in the worst condition. It's at least nearly tied for that. spot, but it's definitely the smallest with about 120 students in that building. We would move southeast to Eastwood and Benton Elementary, reducing third and fourth grades from 3 locations to 2. And in terms of curricular alignment, the more you can have teams and horizontal and vertical alignment, the better. So there's some value in that for our teaching and learning. We would relocate the 22 full-day students in that TLC program to a different location, such as the current central office building. If we were to do that, we could close to the different location. We'd close the school building like the current central office, or the elementary class at Great Circle. In other words, you would take 22 students, you would take the youngest ones, you'd bring them to this building here. They'd be able to have a playground that would be secure and safe. You would take the middle and high school students, you could take them to the central office. If they needed extra counseling services, if they needed PE, if they needed lunch, if they needed extra principal support or counselor support, in 100 yards there are 4 principals, 5 counselors, and a lot of extra supports if they were closer to them. If we wanted to focus on academic shortfalls of our junior and senior class and address graduation rates, we could actually incorporate that in the TLC program. So these are the ideas. All of it's really contingent on if we decide on a space like Great Circle. And also then we could close the Tudor House and the Hoot House and the 5th grade trailers. Putting those 5th graders back in an elementary setting like Northwest, where the current TLC program is, with the playground that they currently don't have, and the pre-K in a center where they can grow and be better served. The transition to make all that happen then would be 2nd grade would go to Spain Hour, which would have sent their preschoolers here. So that would be the swap to make this work. In terms of vertical alignment, though teachers don't love to move their stuff, that's a lot of hard work. That's more kids in one place for a longer period of time for better teaching and learning. It would immediately, in terms of closing buildings, just looking at electricity, closing those locations, $90,000 just in electricity at last year rates, and they're not going down. Again, I want to tell you, though, closing these buildings in our mind is not contingent on a bond or a levy. It's just what needs to happen. So what does it lack? It lacks closing Eastwood. It would be our other worst building with about 200 students. It's harder to close a larger building like that. We would wait a year and look at that process for that building. That would bring the rest of the cost savings into play. It lacks answering what do we do with the buildings we vacate. For a year or two, I'll tell you though, those buildings are full of stuff we need. HVAC components, IT equipment, ceiling tiles, light fixtures. There'd be a lot of things that instead of going to the hardware store, we would go to the vacated buildings and get the parts and supplies that we need. It also helps us, again, with saving that money in operation. It starts attrition. It wraps up our ESSER money, our COVID-19 money, which I look forward to putting behind us in so many ways as far as the paperwork that came with it. It's a clean way to use it. It's a one-time expense. I think it's a way that that kind of money was intended to be spent. It's sustainable. It better serves our students in a healthier and more secure environment. So many stories I can tell you about things I have for concerns about those leaks and various issues in our buildings. But what I know with certainty is a 50-year newer building that was built to be air-conditioned, it's going to have better air quality. And it reduces the number of locations that we maintain while also addressing safety and security. That's why we feel like tonight is worth your consideration and time. That said, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Hart from Insight Design.
While Aaron's getting ready, Mr. Shepard, if you'd like to join us up here. I also want to thank you all, as Mr. Petet said, for coming out tonight. There's a lot of conversation in the community. You came out to hear the things firsthand, and we appreciate that. You know, we want your feedback. Aaron's going to be taking notes for us this evening when we get to the open session or the hearing time. Excuse me, sir. Go ahead. So I just want to make sure that you all say what you'd like to say. Aaron's going to be setting up some information tables. Usually he has those set up, and I can point at those usually when we're here, but I don't see that yet. So
I think all the QR codes we're going to reference are on that back table.
Okay.
Yeah.
So those will be in the back at the back table from what I understand this evening. It may be the table that I see somebody sitting at. Oh, they're back there. So there's a form back there that you can scan the QR code and you can upload directly into Insight's website. He puts all that together and he gives us all that feedback of the information that you all put back into that. So we're happy to hear your report, sir.
All right. Again, my name's Aaron Hardy. I'm with Insight Design Studio. We've been retained by the district to walk and evaluate all the educational facilities so far. We'll continue and move into the non-educational facilities after this process. But we go through each facility and try to identify overall building scores, and as well as trying to understand the deferred maintenance that might be associated with those. And that would be the annual cost of upkeep or things that are failing that you need to have a large investment in. When we do our assessments, we do have architects and engineers that walk the facilities and grade a certain set of these questions. There's about 150 in total. I personally meet with all the principals, interview, and walk each facility with them to try to understand what the facilities are, what they want to be, what the culture is, and how the facility is working as an educational space for those students. We score all those individually. We compile that information. Like I said, it's about 150 questions, and we break it into 3 categories. And we look at the facility itself, and we try to understand how well the facility is working as a facility. You know, is the HVAC equipment working? Does it have life left? Those are the kind of things we're looking at there. We look at adequacy. So how is the building working for education? And we look at safety and security. So you'll see some of those score breakdowns as we go through here. So as part of this process, we are not at the end. We are somewhere in the middle. You can see we still have several stages left. So through teacher engagement via survey, building administrator engagement, board, and district administration engagement, we've gone through, then done our analysis, and now we are at a reporting phase where we're here today. We'll update the board next week with some more information, but this is part of the process. This is where we take information we found, I return it back to you in black and white the way that we saw it, and then I try to get a little bit more understanding of where you might like us to go in terms of putting a long-range plan together. Sorry, we still have yet to fix this problem, although we did discuss some ideas earlier and I didn't put them in. We are cutting off the edges a little bit of these slides, and I apologize. So I'll go through these facilities. I have translated our scores to a grade level, much like a grade card you see for a student. Much easier to digest than me giving you percentages and trying to explain what they mean. So Spainhauer is the high scorer. I'm going to go kind of top score down to bottom. But it's really a tale of two buildings. They have a beautiful new front piece that was just opened and scored excellently. The piece in the back kind of remains untouched from a very, very long time ago. And it's kind of like some of the other facilities that are in the district. It has aging mechanical, electrical, plumbing systems. There's some safety and security concerns and some other components. But when you average them out, it scores as a B-. It starts to show how much newer facilities or newer additions can influence those overall pieces. But there still are some deficiencies that we need to keep our eye on overall at that facility. The high school is in relatively good shape. A C+, I'm a very lenient teacher. I think C+ isn't too bad. I think I was a pretty strong C+ student myself. So, but when I look at how the subcategories, we have 18 subcategories that fall into all these things. It really only got a C or below in 3 of those. So, and those are really in the adequacy section. So it's things that can be addressed relatively simply. Where it wasn't falling down too far was in the big building systems, the big extensive amount of work that you'd have to do to put that into place. Again, doesn't mean there's nothing to do there. It's just showing that its level is above the others. And keep in mind, I asked architects to put pictures in here, and for whatever reason, they showed all the stuff that isn't necessarily good. So there are good components to all these buildings, just not what my folks wanted to show. So St. Louis County Career Center, it's getting a C because it's a little bit older, and the type of facility it does get a lot of use and abuse, and there's a lot of kind of heavy demand on those facilities. Overall, it's a great program, and it's an asset for the community and for the students. It offers a ton of opportunity that they wouldn't otherwise receive. There's a few things we need to be tracking. There was a flood in the basement recently. The culinary department's down there. We need to figure out what's causing that and what's going on. And we're always going to be keeping track of the mechanical and electrical systems. So we look at this a little bit differently. We want to make sure it's appropriate for the space, it's safe for the space, and we have enough electrical and HVAC. So that's what we're tracking there. But at this point, there wasn't anything jumping out to put it above any of the other schools that I'll be going to here shortly. The middle school got a C. We did not include the trailers outside. We did not assess the trailers. We tend to look at those as a temporary solution. It would have lowered the score if we did, although it did factor into the safety and security because it opens the fact that there are students crossing outside right on a street. They're crossing the spot where all the deliveries are coming in with the gate, so there's a lot of safety concerns, and the doors are open to the building. But overall, the building is beautiful. We need to give it some TLC and keep this thing going for a long time. You can see, you'll see some of the other schools that are a little bit older as we go through the scoring, how my approach kind of changes on how I would recommend going about that. But this still has a lot of life left in it. We need to take care of it and do some investment. Again, you're going to see the same things are starting to show up a lot here. It's the big building systems that have the deficiencies. But man, what a building. I don't know if we can ever fix the traffic flow or the site safety. It's a struggle, but something we need to take on. Benton, the newer of the elementaries, I guess, by 4 years of the two other intermediate elementary schools. 1928, I believe it was built, has some additions. The most recent, I don't know the exact date of the most recent, but it was definitely before 1971. It contains environmental hazards that have been outlawed since then. So it shows how long that building has been not been added onto, and it also still referred to as the new addition. So it says something about it. You're starting to see some of the pictures get a little bit more graphic, I guess, if you want to think of that case. But you know, it's just older facilities. It's a lot more to maintain. It's harder to maintain, and it's harder to keep up. Again, traffic flow issues at this school. I skipped that at Spainhauer. There's still some traffic flow issues we need to address there, kind of district-wide. But here, definitely wayfinding at all the elementary schools. Wayfinding's an issue. You want to park in the front. You think the entry's in the front. I did 2 laps around this building before I figured out where the entry was. And even in that case, it wasn't a very secure entry. Although if someone was coming, you'd see them walking around the building a couple times before they got in. But you know, the things that these buildings do have, they have lots of light in the classrooms. They have beautiful windows. They do have positives. Not all of them open. You know, but then you have a mix of mechanical systems. But again, kind of an older building. Northwest, relatively new. Again, pictures of deficiencies. You know, we evaluated this as an alternative learning center. And so there's a little bit of the scoring would have to translate over if we're going to look at it in a different perspective. But when it comes to the actual facility, it still has the same needs as all the rest. Extensive HVAC needs, roofing, major roofing needs at this facility, as evidenced by a lot of the stains. It's hard to see, but those are all stains on ceiling tiles, a lot of leaks. And starting to get in it's getting hit a lot on adequacy here because it wasn't designed as an alternative learning center. They have really special and unique demands, and they just don't have that as built as an elementary school. So they're making it work for what it needs to be. But if it's going to be a long-term solution, you know, there's probably some changes that need to go in, and we can take care of those. And then Southeast and Eastwood, at our last meeting, we had a debate. You know, he referenced one being the lowest scoring. I had a different opinion. They're really kind of interchangeable. They're both built in the same year, and they both have a lot of the same challenges. Traffic flow is an issue. Safety and security is a big deal. Benton is in the same group. The gym is not a gym. The gym is really just a large room. It's got concrete floors or asbestos tile floors. Eastwood had pieces of it falling on us at the last meeting. So there's a lot of deficiencies that wrap up into both of those buildings. And you can see they both scored in the D range there. And you can start to see some of these pictures here. That's water stain. That's the ceiling of the gym. Not sure what that is. But you know, lots of little pieces, parts and pieces around the facility that we have to address. You know, one of the big concerns is the real lack of secure entries in all the facilities. I know he touched on it a little bit, but there really is no good solution at these older elementaries. When we talk about flexibility in class spaces and the ability to modify, I mean, go tap on one of these walls, this building. It's concrete. I mean, you're not going to, you know, hey, just move the office over here and let's create this. When you walk into these schools, primarily Eastwood, when I entered, I was buzzed in. You know, they saw me through the A-phone. They got a screen. It's about that big. They deemed me to be safe because I look very safe. And so I entered, and there was some kids going to specials, and they're lined up. So I was waiting for them to cross, high-fived them all, that kind of thing. They went on. Then I went the wrong direction. I was wandering down a hallway. The SRO found me. He guided me nicely to the office where I needed to be. And so all the protocols fell into place there, but still I was in a building wandering. And that could be anybody. And you know, you assume that most people are friendly, but that's the case in multiple of those. And there's really no way to contain that and change that setup in this facility. And it's not meant to scare a lot of people. It's just a fact of those older buildings. So when I put these all together, and now I'm going to convert these into a different way of scoring. So I take those grades, and again, sorry, it's cutting this off here. So we've got the facility score, the adequacy score, and the safety score. And this is missing the F, so that says FCI rating. That stands for Facility Condition Index. So I'm able to take those scorings that each of these people, engineers and architects, provided, and convert that to basically dollars, and understand approximately what the demand of deferred maintenance might be in totality. And then I'm able to break that down a little bit into category. So facility is by far the largest drain in terms of deferred maintenance. It's about 2/3 of the total cost. So when I'm looking at total replacement, and that's what the FCI is calculating, it's taking what the deferred maintenance rating is, or cost, and comparing that against what it costs to build new. So it's a percentage. The higher the number, the higher the percent, the worse. It's like golf. So the higher it goes up, it's saying that it's costing more and more and more to replace against building new. So if I have a score of 1, that's a great score, 1%. 100% would mean 100% to renovate or replace. I again converted them all to scores, so you can see they really cross over really well to the overall scores of the other ones, but you can see where most of the deficiencies are. So facility costs 2/3 of the overall deferred maintenance. It happens to be the category that most of these are the most deficient in. Adequacy is the next line. That's the one, again, is the space working? Those are things that we can make improvements to relatively easy. They don't have necessarily, there's things you can do that don't have a relatively strong cost impact. So we have the most flexibility with that. And then safety and security is somewhere in the middle. But facility, we can really improve the overall score by large investments. And I'll show you how that works in some scenarios that we work up here. So I take those scores, they go to percentages. So if I put that up there, everybody will be looking at it. They're like, what does that mean? I don't know. It's just a bunch of numbers. But ultimately, it comes to these kind of numbers. Those all have M's after them, so those are all millions of dollars. So you can start to run this across and understand what that total impact is. So across the entire district, approximately $38 million is estimated to be needed in deferred maintenance. Now, that doesn't mean we have to go do that next year. It's stuff, there's a chunk of that that really needs to be done next year. But then there's some pieces you could roll out and do over time and maintain. Earlier they referenced $1.5 million HVAC spent over the last 3 years. So I was on my computer looking it up. The HVAC deferred maintenance number across the district is still like 4 point something. It just shows that when you have older facilities, you continue to invest. It doesn't mean it's done. You just have to move to the next one and the next one. He's referencing it because $1.5 million puts an enormous strain on the budget they have right now. Imagine having another $4 million still sitting out there somewhere, plus another $34 million on top of that. Overall, of this deferred maintenance, approximately $15 million of that is in the stuff that I would deem to not be sexy, is a term that we use, right? Mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and roofs. And we're talking a huge investment on stuff that people may never understand or see or think's important, although it's highly important. And the rest would be made up of all the other components, functionality and doors and all the other stuff that goes into to a facility. To break this down, it became very evident where the highest needs are. And you can see those first 4 there that have Eastwood, Southeast, Northwest, and Benton. And it became very apparent that the first challenge is identifying what the direction is at the elementary level. And so that required us to ask some questions. We know that we need to fix those buildings. We know that we need to improve them in some way, but there are options on how we can improve them. And that's part of the feedback that we're going to ask for tonight on what direction we might want to proceed. So everything else after, after this slide will just be related to those 4 schools. So keep in mind, there's still other work to be done and will be done. It's just focusing on those schools so we can break it down. So again, going back to what those scores were for those facilities, you can see where they're scoring D pluses, C minuses. Overall FCI rating is 29%, which means it costs 29% to fix compared to build new. When the FCI rating first came out, it was done by the government. And keep in mind, they're in a little bit different spot than a school district. You have to ask for money and they can make it. But anything over 30% was automatically deemed something they would replace. It wasn't a value enough to continue to invest in because of the continued draw that it would require. With schools and having limited funds and having taxpayer money that influences and sentimental values and all the other things that tie to it, we rephrase that. Anything over 30% is something we need to really be having a hard look at on how we're going to address it and make sure we have a good plan in place to keep it maintained before it slips back into a condition where it is today after you make improvements. Facility rating, though, is at 35%, so it does cross that threshold. and some of the other ones are slightly below. So before we get into the options, first I'm going to preface it by saying these aren't final options, these are just ideas. I came up with an idea that we do nothing. I came up with an idea that's just maintains what we have, one that builds a new school, and then something that's somewhere in the middle. Really, it's just, I'm going to ask you guys, you tell me what you think the best option is, and I'll try to run through what some of those impacts would be to those scores, what the relative cost impact would be, and so on. But so far, we have done some public engagement. We asked for feedback on where we think our priorities should be when putting a long-range plan together. And this was at the end of a survey that started by asking questions about what is an effective learning space? Do our schools have that now? How would you make it more effective? But we ultimately asked, what priorities should we have in this plan? And you can see the results that we got. And if there's a number next to them, it just meant that they were mentioned multiple times, and we grouped them together. So keep this in mind as you consider some of the options and how, when I just kind of review what we might be doing, will we be being able to tackle these? You know, will we check a lot of these boxes, and will it be an effective use of funds as we move forward? Some are very specific, right? No trailers, build new building, right? That's either is or isn't. But there's other things in there that we can take care of in multiple ways, and I'll try to address where things are more affected than others. So again, going back to our score, the overall deferred maintenance at the elementary level is about $18 million if we do nothing. If we sit on this, I projected this out 8 years. Most of that's inflation. I use a modest 5% inflation. We'll see what happens. But that goes from 12 point something to 18 million. But what most of that is the buildings continue to deteriorate. And they deteriorate mainly in the facility section, again, the most expensive section, because adequacy and security and safety will remain somewhat stagnant unless there's a new kind of security threat that we need to address, and we need to update our scoring systems. So you can see we just continue to slide into a different range. So that is option 0, do nothing, which is an option. So if we get to option option 1, this one takes all the inventory we have now, and I'm sorry, it contradicts your speech because this evaluates all the facilities. I'm assuming all the facilities are still open. So this would go through and we address everything that we can within those facilities, and we do everything we can to make them better. And I went through and rescored every building based on assumptions of what kind of projects we can do. Can I replace a mechanical system? How much can I do on the plumbing? What can I do with electrical? All the things we can do. What I can't do, so I had to leave some things off the list. You know, I can't move a secure entry somewhere because it's not feasible within the building. I cannot fix the gym at the elementaries because that is what it is. I am just renovating what we have and improving it. So you can see that we can improve the facility score by almost 21%. It puts it into a pretty decent range overall, but it really has not a ton of impact to the overall safety. It has some impact on safety, some impact on adequacy, but it still keeps those left out there. And what it doesn't do is decrease the deferred maintenance as much as some of the other options I'm going to show. So it says it will still be chasing almost $6 million of deferred maintenance after that's done. Maybe not the next year or the year after that, but it's still going to be hanging out there because we still have 100-year-old buildings. We still have things that we need to deal with that could pop up that we need to address. That project, I estimated around $17 million of initial expenditure to do those on those 4 buildings. But it does have some big benefits. It does increase the scoring, it resets the life. It just doesn't really address adequacy or safety and security enough, in my opinion. When you get to option 2, this one would be, basically pick 2 elementaries and close them, and take the other 2 and expand them, basically consolidate into 2 intermediate 2-4 schools, 2 through 4, 3 grade schools. I guess we don't have to limit that to what grades are in there. So it could be 2, 3, 4, or 3, 4, 5. Basically just consolidating those. For this case, I just chose the 2 best of the 4, so it's Northwest and Benton. They also they're the only ones that have any site associated with them that we can build on. Eastwood and Southeast are landlocked for the most part. And put that together again, ran all the numbers. The benefit of this is not only we shed operational costs and we can consolidate staffs and it's better for teaming and vertical teaming and all those things, we are able to take the deferred maintenance money that we needed at 2 facilities and then continue to invest at the other, not new facilities, the new additions. And for really relatively not a lot of difference of total money, and make additions. Now we can address, I can put a new safety and secure entry on. I can add sped spaces that are needed. I can build a new gym. I can do things to help the adequacy of the building and then go back into the existing building and repurpose those spaces to what they were really suitable for and make the building better and more functional in terms of educational delivery. So this one you can affect safety, you can affect adequacy a lot better. This one, you'll notice the facility rating doesn't increase a lot more than the previous one because I was able to address a lot of those needs by renovating. This one affects the other two categories. This one relieves you with $4 million of deferred maintenance, so about 2-point-something, $3 million difference. Estimated investment, $20 million. So it's really kind of a wash when you put those two together, when you look at deferred maintenance and you subtract out everything else. So they're not too far apart overall. Really, it comes down to feasibility, and then you're still left with some 100-year-old buildings and understanding that we still have to maintain those as we move forward. The third one is the most extreme. It got an A. I was joking last time. It's the first time I've ever scored a building that doesn't exist, and I got to design it in my head. So, but I was fair, and it also shows that our assessment is not everything needs to be perfect. Some things kind of contradict each other. The more flexible something is, it'll score down on something else. It got a 95% overall. What it does is it's way expensive, way more expensive than the other ones. $10 million difference from the just renovate option. But it takes basically the entire deferred maintenance budget away. There's still going to be things you got to keep track of year after year, but it's relatively light. And what that allows you to do is the initial expenditure is large, but it takes a lot of the long-term maintenance. So now we can refocus on other things. Because again, in this plan, we haven't talked about any of the middle schools, the high schools, career center, so we can kind of focus our efforts on that. So there's pros and cons to every one as we work our way through. I'm not here to influence you anyway. I just want to understand what the community feels the best direction might be. And so we do have a QR code in the back. I summarized the 4 options there. But when you look at this, I used option 1 as the kind of a relative cost impact and set that at 0. So if we do nothing, we, I guess, are $5 million ahead in 8 years, although we still have to spend a lot of money. Again, I've mentioned it goes up to, that $38 million goes to $60 million in eight years. I don't know if I mentioned that before. It goes up quick. So there is, I guess, savings if you want to think of it there, but that's the do nothing option. Option 2 and option 3, when you look at it, it's really about a $5 million spread when you take the initial investment and then add in the amount of deferred maintenance that's left. So just something to consider. Initial investment is obviously important because that's what we're paying out of pocket now in a capital expenditure. But at long term, it does have some benefits. I did put some pros and cons on here too, and I can leave that up for a minute as we transition some stuff, and you can see that. But each one, obviously a new building gives us all the flexibility we want. Some give us some cost savings. Maybe there's a hybrid in the middle. My office, we sat there for 2 hours today and argued over which one we would do. We're like, well, I'd do this and this would be better. So we can't even decide amongst ourselves because we don't have enough information, and we'd really like your input on this. So please take a moment at the end, hit the QR code, and pick an option that you'd like. It's a forced rank, so you do have to pick your favorite, your second favorite, your third favorite, your fourth favorite. But hopefully that'll give us a good indication of something we can present to the board on at least what the feedback was, so they can make a better decision when they decide what to do ultimately when that gets put before them. So that is the end of my spiel.
Does that the clicker work with that too? Okay, I want to thank everybody for coming tonight also. Some of you came Wednesday night or Monday night, so I appreciate you coming to both. You'll hear a lot of the same information, maybe a couple of the same bad jokes, I don't know. But we'll get this pulled up. A little bit about myself. My name's David Reinke. I'm the new assistant superintendent. I have been with Mr. Petet here. This is about 6 months in this position. But I kind of want to tell you a little bit. I'm not from Marshall. I'm actually from Wisconsin, but I came to Marshall in 1996 to go to Missouri Valley. And I was there and then took my first teaching job in 2002. For you doing the math, yes, I was not a very good student, That was not one of those bad jokes. My dad didn't think so either. So, but what I tell you that for is because realistically, for the last 15 years, I have watched Marshall. I've been around Marshall, been around the community, and watched the school system. So I'm not taking this snapshot or what we're trying to do or look at or getting feedback from 6 months. I'm taking it from about 15 years. So, and one of the things as we're going through this, I truly do appreciate you guys coming out tonight because we do want your feedback. We want everybody's feedback. When we talked about this, some of these things a few months ago, our original thoughts and processes have changed from talking to people and talking to our staff and talking to people in the community, and actually has shifted quite a bit. So just know it could. Again, from feedback. So as we get going here, we have really two things going on, and we kind of need to understand that. We have Mr. Hart with Insight Design. He's trying to develop our long-range facility plan. Okay, what's best for this district in the long term? What can we do? But we also have a short-range thing going on. Okay, what Mr. Petet hit on in a couple years, our budget's gonna. It's not looking real good if it stays the same. So what are we going to do to fix that? All right, and so Mr. Petet hit on some of this stuff. I'm going to try to get a little more detail for you guys, and then we truly want your feedback. We got some more QR codes. I'll go over that. Okay, so community forum facilities planning. All right, and I did not change all the clicks, but we'll get going on. So when we're looking at facility planning, we are truly looking at, and especially the short range, the district as a whole. Okay, we need to look at everything. Our enrollment is one of our guiding principles. We are down, well, I think it's 90 right now, but it varies. Our enrollment varies almost every day, really, with almost 2,400 kids. But we're down about 100 students this year. Okay, that is one of the. It does not help our budget situation. We are estimating, and I'll show you here in a minute kind of where we're at, but I'm estimating we will not see an increase in enrollment in Marshall Public Schools for quite a while. I think it's going to drop a little bit and then it's going to level out. Okay, add that to the levy rolling back, Marshall Public Schools has to adjust. I truly believe that. Okay, so what we're talking about, we need to start saving some money, okay, our cost savings. Okay, we are not cutting positions with this plan, but like Mr. Petet talked about, we can start saving by attrition. Okay, if we start consolidating, combining, teacher leaves, faculty member leaves, we can replace with somewhere else and don't have to go out and hire. We also can start by cutting utility and maintenance costs in some of our buildings. Okay, and then truly, I want to re-hit again. We are looking at feedback from all of you in the community and doing what's best for our students and the community. Okay, so our current enrollment numbers, you can see, I don't know if everybody can see, it's just got a little, oh, there we go. Okay, so if you look at the 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th grade, we have a couple big classes with 206, 207. Oh, right there. Okay, so those are going through right now. If you look down here, we start to drop, and that's why I'm predicting that our enrollment, we're not going to see a big increase. Now, we do gain some other students from surrounding schools in our 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. That's averaging about 30 students, and that's not per class. That is between all 4 grades. So that is why we're not going to see a jump. I think with COVID, some homeschooling, some different things, we have lost some students. Okay, I want to point out some enrollment numbers in these 3 things and just kind of keep these in mind as they're going to be important as we kind of go on. Okay, our 5th grade right now, or for next year, will have a 20-plus student increase for the 23-24 school year. They'll have 185 students in their class. Then I think they're going to drop back down for the next couple years to be about 175. Okay, so that's one thing I want to point out. Southeast Elementary right now has about, and that varies, about 120 students. And I'll tell you why that's important here in a little bit. In our Northwest TLC program, and this varies, as of Monday we have 22 full-time students and 5 part-time students that go to Northwest in our TLC program. So in the high school sections, we have 6 full-time, 1 part-time. Middle school is 8 full-time, 1 part-time. And then our elementaries combined is 8 full-time and 3 part-time. Okay, so in this plan, here Southeast Elementary School, we would be closing this school. It's over 100 years old. I don't know if many people have been in it lately. It has some issues. There's water running in the libraries. There's termites eating up the walls. It's in rough shape. The maintenance on it is going to be quite a bit. So just shutting this building down, just in utilities would save, just utilities, I'm talking water, gas, and electricity, is going to save us about $35,000 annually, a year. This does not include any of the fixing, getting rid of the termites, fixing termite damage, or updating any of the security or the secure vestibules. They have currently 120 students. They have 2 sections of 2nd grade, 2 sections of 3rd grade, 2 sections of 4th grade. So what we would do, plus their support staff, we would take, if we close this building, we would take 2nd grade and they would move to Spainhauer Elementary. And I'm going to get to the domino effect now, how everything's going to fit together. I want to kind of, before I get to the domino effect, this is our policies on school closings, and I just kind of wanted to show the community this. So this is policy FC. If anytime we want to close a building in the district, we need to follow this. So we are going under bullet point 1 and bullet point 2, our efficiency, because our enrollment is declining, and then the physical condition of the building. Okay. So let's talk about the Great Circle property that we're sitting in tonight. This is an opportunity for the district. You know, this is why we're getting feedback from the community, from you. That's why you're here tonight. There's actually QR codes for a little survey. But right now, this space is empty. Everybody knows that. We can get this space for about $1 million. Now, that's not set in stone, but that's looking what the negotiation could be if we go that far. To build this would be over, if we built this facility right now, it would be over $16 million for the district. We do have, like Mr. Petet said, we have some COVID dollars that are sitting out there. We wouldn't be dipping into our money. We'd be using that money and then purchasing this property if we decide to do that, community decides to do that. So if we bought this property, what would happen? We would take all of central office, all of Tudor House, and I'll show you a picture of Tudor House. Tudor House and the Hoot House are out on the Hab Center property. The Tudor House houses some of our bookkeepers or some of our central office, a lot of our special ed process coordinators right now. Our Hoot House houses our social work team. We would take our elementary TLC program, okay, from Northwest, and we would actually move that out here. So they have a cafeteria, so they have playgrounds, or one of the playgrounds out here. And then our early childhood would move out here. And after we would get that set, we'd be able to utilize cafeteria, playgrounds, and all the amenities, I guess, out here once we get them fixed up. So this is the Tudor House and the Hoot House, if you guys don't know that, out there. This would be 2 roofs and 2 buildings and 2 utility costs we can shut down right now, or if we did this plan. So these houses are beautiful, or at least the Tudor House is, but they are going to require a lot of maintenance coming up, if you don't know that. So they would save about estimated $18,000 a year. Our current central office, okay, so if we move central office out here, this would open up our central office and we would move our high school and our middle school TLC programs into central office. Right now, as of Monday, our high school has 7 students, our middle school has 9 students. What this does, we believe, is it puts multiple administrators in the same area on that campus. So you have the career center right there, you have the high school right there. It allows for food service to be close. Okay, we can deliver to the central office, or the students can use the cafeteria at the high school. We can build into the schedule the use of the PE areas within the high school, and the athletic complex is right there also. This also allows TLC students taking CTE classes at the Saline County Career Center to be on the same campus. They would be right there, can walk over just like high school. And then we would put 4 classrooms in the current central office, which we could very easily do, and then have room for additional staffing with some offices. Okay, so then we go to Spainhauer Elementary building. Moving early childhood to the Great Circle building out here would allow room to make for all of our second graders. Okay, and that's from Southeast, Eastwood, and Benton. So all of our second grade teachers, all our second grade classrooms would be moving into Spainhauer, and they will all fit. We mapped it out. So, and then that would make Spainhauer K through 2 building. Okay, and then this would allow enough space in Benton and Eastwood, and then we could move the 2 sections, actually 2 sections of 3rd grade, 2 sections of 4th grade, from closing Southeast into Benton and Eastwood, and they would fit. And then we would put those grades together. And if you guys never noticed how much Benton and Eastwood look alike, it just shocked me the other day. I told everybody that Monday. I'm still amazed by it. But so Benton and Eastwood become 3rd and 4th grade buildings. All right, so our Northwest school. Okay, by putting the middle school and the high school TLC programs in the central office and moving the elementary TLC program out here, this would allow the entire 5th grade to move out of those trailers behind Beaker, and we would create a 5th grade center at Northwest. There's going to be 8 sections next year, 5th, with the estimated enrollment of 185. The benefit to them is they would have bathrooms in the building, and then plus their access to a playground, which they really don't now. Okay, so that's a lot of moving. But how is this really going to be affecting students in this moving process? All right, and we figured this out because we truly aren't trying to upset the apple cart. We're really not, but we want to try to do what's best for the district. So, moving early childhood currently has, I think of Monday, around 128 students. They vary. But 65 of those students are moving to kindergarten, so they'll be staying at Spainhauer anyways. 63 would be moving out here to the new early childhood center. So we'd be affecting 63 students with that move. Our TLC program students would move. So right now we have 6 in the high school, 8 in the middle school, 8 elementary, and that varies a little bit, but we'd have those students would be affected. Our current 1st grade would stay in Spainhauer an additional year. They would just move up to 2nd grade, so they're really not going to be affected. Our current 4th graders, if we did the 5th grade center, they wouldn't be affected because regardless, they are moving to trailers or a 5th grade center. And our 40 current 2nd graders, or 40 current 2nd graders and 40 current 3rd graders that are in Southeast, they would be affected. They would be moving to Benton or Eastwood. So we have about 163 students out of 2,400 that would be affected by these moves. All right, so to recap, I know it's a lot of pieces, so hopefully you can walk out of here tonight with a good understanding, and if you don't, come talk to me after this. So, recap, all of central office, our social work team, actually our PAT also out of Spainhauer, early childhood, and our elementary TLC classroom would come out here into this building if we did purchase this. Our middle school and high school TLC rooms, they would move to central office along with the support staff. Our Spainhauer becomes a K through 2 building. Benton and Eastwood become 3rd and 4th grade buildings. Northwest becomes a 5th grade center. And then Beaker they would stay the same. They would lose 5th grade but have 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. So those are some of the ideas we have for the district-wide. Like I said, we look overall in the district and see how we can make the pieces fit. with improving our facilities and doing what's best for kids, what we're trying to do. So, but we do want your feedback, and Mr. Jakes will open up the floor here in a little bit. But if you don't feel comfortable speaking now, which is fine, come talk to us. But there's also on the back table in the corner there, there's QR codes, and there's, I think, 3 surveys back there. You can click on the QR code and take that on your phone, and then we'll look at all that information. So again, I thank you for coming tonight, and then we will.
Yep. On the QR codes, Aaron here with us, I'm gonna ask him to help us out here in a minute. He's got 1 QR code that you haven't seen, 2 that have been getting passed around for you to scan. I'm hoping that'll allow you to give us feedback on your way out the door. Aaron, if you don't mind, could we put your QR code right by the door so they can each just scan it on their way out for your feedback, and yours are passing around the room. If you haven't got his QR codes, they'll still be on the back table as he referenced.
All right. So I understand there's still some interest in possibly having another daytime hearing. I've heard that from a few people and been called with that, so we may be reconvening for something else. I appreciate you all coming out tonight. Feel free to walk around if you didn't get to before. Grab somebody and ask a few questions if you need to. Otherwise, thank you all for your time for tonight. I do need a motion from the board to adjourn. All those in favor? Thank you. Thank you all, please. And please go share the facts that you've heard. Talk to other people and encourage them to reach out to us. Have a good night.